Live at the courthouse following all of this as it played out. Retired NYPD Inspector Paul Mauro and attorney Donna Rotunno, criminal defense attorney. Both are Fox News contributors. Welcome to both of you. We're looking at a live shot, I believe. This is live, right? Outside. This is Ruth's daughter, and I believe the son on the left, he had a jacket on a moment ago, so if you can confirm that for me. Is that the family members as we see them there? All right, we're waiting on confirmation on that. We saw his daughter basically storm out of the courthouse a short time ago. Paul, relay for us what you saw play out here.
Well, I think it was somewhat of a fait accompli in the way that Ryan Ruth chose to defend himself. The theory of his defense, as coherent as you could make it, is essentially, I'm too nice a guy to have done what you're charging me with. And by the way, the gun wouldn't work. And then he called a ballistics expert to test the gun, who said, hey, by the way, the gun does work. So I got the feeling all along, this is just a cop's read, that he had decided to set himself up as some sort of martyr to the anti-Trump crowd. And I think that's somewhat borne out by the reaction he had to the verdict. It really seems to be like he wanted to set himself up as being on some sort of a mission. That's actually the word he used in the infamous note that he left for whoever came after him. So look, we're going to have a sentencing phase here. He's going to go to jail for the rest of his life. One thing I would add, though, let's recall, there are state charges pending against him. And not only they attempted murder, but there's a terrorism charge. Now, I doubt this will ever see court. But my point is, what he did is no joke. While he himself behaved somewhat clownishly, these charges were not clownish, and what he tried to do was deadly serious.
Absolutely, and the jury decided exactly that. Donna, your reaction to what we saw play out in this courtroom, there's no camera in there, but the reports that he tried to stab himself in the neck in front of the jury after these verdicts were read.
Well, I think what we're seeing is victimhood playing out in live form. And I think even looking at his daughter's comments, right? He's been treated like they're bullying him and he doesn't get to do what he wants and he can't put on a defense and they're shutting him down. I think that all goes to his action at the end, almost as if it's a tragic Greek story. But really, the court gave him every opportunity to have counsel, to have proper defense, to put himself in a position to actually defend himself in a way that maybe would have not come across as so narcissistic, really. So I think that he had every chance to have the lawyers that he wants, and now for himself to act as a victim and for his daughter to act as if he was victimized. And of course, you know, you feel sorry for her. She's his daughter and that's her dad.
Of course.
But to kind of throw the entire system under the bus and act as if he was the victim really is quite ironic in a circumstance like this.
So I just want to show everyone what we're looking at here. This is Fort Pierce, Florida. Ryan Ruth's verdict has come down. He was found guilty on 5 counts of trying to assassinate a major presidential candidate. That is the most serious count that will get him a very, very long time, most likely life. The sentencing will come on December 18th in prison. But what you're looking at here, they are waiting for the vehicle that he's in to come out from this gate. It's a live shot in Fort Pierce. The woman in the white dress to the left of that gate is his daughter, Sarah Ruth. So we're not sure if the young man next to her is her brother, although we did see the son also present. He had a navy blue jacket on earlier, but you see 2 individuals standing there, one of whom we can confirm is Ryan Ruth's daughter. Obviously a very emotional day for this family. She was very upset. She left. She said that he didn't get a fair trial. Paul Mauro, how long will this processing take? Where would they be taking him? What can you tell us about what's happening now?
Well, now he's awaiting sentences. He's convicted, so he's going to go back into the system. They will likely take him. He's probably been held locally. Usually the way these things work is there's a local holding facility, and then there's the actual prison. So I think they'll probably keep him local here until the sentencing, although it's a few months. So, you know, we'll have to see. But at this point, look, it's a fait accompli. In December, he's going to get a sentence. That means he's going to be spending the rest of his life in jail. And this closes a chapter on yet another attempt on our president's life. And as I was saying earlier, while it seemed somewhat clownish and farcical as he was defending himself with this silly theory of I'm too nice a guy to have done this, I'm so peaceable, we have to remember he waited 9 hours in a sniper's nest with a long gun that would have done tremendous damage. And I don't mean to be graphic, but all I have to do is refer to the Charlie Kirk video, and you can see what kind of damage these sorts of guns can do. I know it's not the same gun, but nonetheless. And all I can say is, had Crooks in Butler or Ruth down here in Florida succeeded, we would have had a very different video to look at and a very different world right now. So wherever they're holding him or wherever they're going to sending him, it's very clear that this guy was committed. He planned it a long time. He was living in his car to stay near the golf course. And all I can say is Donald Trump and a lot of other people likely are safer with this guy locked away forever.
Yeah, it's a great point, Paul. And I can confirm that the son is next to his sister as they wait to see this vehicle go by. They're obviously standing there because they want to have that moment of eye contact, I would imagine, with their father before he's taken away again. And Paul makes a great point. This was almost to the day, 2 months after July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, when if President Trump had not turned his head just slightly, we would be living in a very different country right now, as Paul rightly says. So the tensions in the country were so high, Donna, at this point. And when you see a second individual who has plotted and planned and paid attention to exactly where President Trump would be on the golf course, on that sixth hole, or heading towards that sixth hole at that moment, this feels like a just verdict, and the jury obviously thought that through in their process. They deliberated only for a couple of hours. The evidence was very overwhelming. Don, a quick question for you. Does the action that he took with the pen, trying to stab himself, change anything about where he will be taken? Will he be taken to a jail cell that is a mental health facility as a result of that? Does it have any impact at all?
Well, they will definitely do an assessment on him to determine if he has suicidal ideologies, what his suicide risks are. He will be under special watch. That could happen at a hospital setting within a jail setting, or it could happen in a jail cell where he just has more people watching him, and they may put cameras or other things on him to ensure a level of safety.
And it's worth pointing out once again that a citizen spotted him and was concerned about this individual's actions, took a picture of the license plate, and without that individual, I mean, this is why if you see something, say something. We might not be sitting here today looking at this man about to most likely spend the rest of his life in jail.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.